2 meetups, we actually already have the topics determined. What we're hoping to do is get maybe 2 or 3 people that have done visualizations. Oh, it's PI, it's supposed to be BI. Oops. Sorry, that's supposed to be Power BI, that have used Power BI, but then at the same time actually saying, okay, here's Power BI, but here's a comparison to Tableau, actually having to develop the code yourself. And then March 2019, we're going to go over data cleaning best practices, and that's where we'll cover, what makes sense to do, say in Excel, because I'll be honest, I still use Excel, even though I have a lot of tools available to me. Sometimes there's just things that are easier to do in Excel, that it just takes way too much time to do programmatically.
I totally get it. My job is to try to eliminate Excel.
To eliminate that.
On both sides of it, so.
I don't know if you can't, I don't know if that, it would be interesting.
Yeah.
Well, so we both work at OU Health Science Center, by the way, so that's how we know each other. So we work together. Well, not work together, but, so this is just our contact information, it's Gmail, we all have access to it. We're starting to be more active on Twitter and Facebook, and that's the meetup link. What we're wanting to do on a regular basis to the Twitter and Facebook pages is actually post like things that we're finding interesting in the analytics space. There's a really cool tool that I use for aggregating RSS feeds called Feedly. I don't know if anybody still uses RSS feeds, but I love them. I think they're underutilized a lot. But it's a great aggregator so that you can get just a ton of information very quickly. So one of the things we'll start doing is actually posting, hopefully daily, just something that we're finding, like here's a new update that Google Search Console did. So if you're having to run, I don't know if anybody does SEO, digital marketing here. So if anybody does that, you kind of know, oh, well, there's a new update. Because sometimes that stuff gets hidden by Google, I feel like, down in its depths, and they don't really share it with people. So we'll start doing that too.
Social media.
Yeah, social media is a big one that we try to keep up to date with. In my previous life, we did Facebook Analytics, Twitter, and YouTube. And so those 3 are so different. And then the data that you can get out via the interface versus the API. And then you have different versions of APIs that are out there. And then like say YouTube, they have 5 or 6 different ones that you can pull from. It's a huge, and then how long it takes them to be updated is another piece. That's a big problem with digital data. And so that's something, like if there's interest in that, we can actually cover some of the limitations of it. Because I think that's, a lot of people just don't know until they get in and mess with it. I just happened to work for an agency that did a lot of video content for a client, and we had to pull down daily information of play rates, how many people just viewed it to 25, 50, 75 complete, where they were located, gender and demographics across all the platforms, including one they made in-house on their website. So that was fun. Does anybody have any questions or any suggestions for other topics they think would be helpful to cover?
I'll go by this one. Some of the other topics we've talked about that we haven't scheduled a time for, like just in SQL 101. If you're a Python programmer, an R programmer, Power BI, your business tools, yeah, SQL is something totally different in its own beast, and you have to use it. So that's another topic. Of course, we're going to do data visualizations with Power BI, but we would like to have a Power BI versus Tableau. R is obviously a big one, so we might have its own may have R versus Python, because I know that's, we could have a debate instead of just a talk, because I know that's a big issue out there, R versus Python.
I think that would be kind of fun to do, actually, now that you bring it up. Like if you actually had people from, because that's what we're hoping to do, is have people from the different core groups perhaps come to this one and actually have these interactive conversations so everybody can kind of talk about it and share their experiences. I think that's really helpful from a professional standpoint, because really once you your degree or your education, what people look at is experience, right? And everybody's experience is different, so if we can get more people together actually sharing and even debating. Debating
I
is
wonder
not
if
a
it'd be
bad thing.
controversial to do like replacing MATLAB with R. They probably wouldn't appreciate it.
Well, even like when because I did a talk for the Python users group in December where it compared Seaborn with, what was it? Matplotlib, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it compared the two, and basically Seaborn is, I think, so much better than like the amount of code you have to write, it comes out a lot cleaner, better looking, and it was interesting because a lot of people in there, even though Seaborn has been around, a lot of people hadn't even used it yet or knew it existed. I just happened to find out about it because when I went to that conference, it was funny, this guy was going through all these visualizations using Matplotlib, then he gets to Seaborn and he's like, oh, by the way, here's Seaborn. And everybody in the room was like, these look so much better than the stuff you've been showing us for the past hour. Why didn't you show us all of this? And so that's actually available on, I think, the GitHub, like the talk for that. And like, I actually uploaded code that took people through the examples of how to build them and did some data cleaning in that too. So it kind of broke out the steps because each of the visualizations require different data formatted very differently. And Python's a pain to, I think, manipulate data in. I don't like it. I like SAS for that part. Does anybody use SAS here? Anybody heard of SAS? So if you ever are interested in learning it, they do have a thing called the SAS University Edition that you can download for free. It can be a little wonky when they have to upgrade it, but it is great like if you just want to learn how to use SAS in and of itself, like the syntax. The cool thing about SAS too is that you can actually use SQL coding in it, which is kind of nice. So they have a lot of references if you know SAS, like this is how you could do this in SQL type stuff. I like SQL.
SQL is its own beast. I don't dislike it. It's just a different frame of mind. Like speaking Spanish and Japanese, they're two totally different ways.
Exactly.
I'm an art programmer, so I'll stick there.
But are there any other topics or things that you guys feel like would be good to discuss, or you think would be like anything you guys have experienced that you guys want to know more about?
You guys already talked on data cleaning?
Mm-hmm.
Just on that, does sound.
Can you say that louder?
Sorry.
One topic that was mentioned
Uh-huh.
is the web scraping process there.
Oh, web scraping. Yeah, we could, well, I don't know if you could do it. I probably wouldn't, but that's where the developer I happen to
Yeah,
with
I would like to do that, yeah.
So that's where kind of having, because he did like one talk last year about how to install GTM on your website and do custom advanced website analytics. And so he's actually helped built some web scrapers, and so that's something we could definitely pull in, because I know, say, aggregating data from Reddit has been a big one for sentiment analysis people want to do. And sentiment analysis is a whole other, like, world.
Well, and before we get too far off, this group isn't solely about like programming and that side of development. They are sort of coming on from both sides, like the math, marketing side, where you're trying to learn a few more skills, because now you have to have some of these skills to do anything. So even we deal with a lot of biologists who are trying to analyze things statistically and have to learn how to program, and they're not very good at it. So this isn't solely, oh my gosh, I have to be like some super programmer and I'm verging on into data analysis. You could be coming from the other side, learning how to do more in-depth stuff.
Web scraping is a good one though. I hadn't even thought about that one.
I was recently introduced to a couple of packages that I haven't played with, so it could be sort of like,
Yeah.
here's the easy way, and here, if you can program, here's
Yeah, if you can.
an even cooler way to do it. But yeah, today's meeting is probably, is shorter than the next 11 will be, because we wanted to give you guys an introduction. OKC Analytics not having Python or SQL or anything in its title has been a bit confusing to people about what we're actually doing, and we're basically doing everything together, because honestly you can't really stick to one language most of the time from beginning to end. You tend to have to pick the right tool at the right part of your process. And so trying to just have a meetup on one tool doesn't make sense if this is what you're doing. And there are some tools that are better, and there are companies out there that will sell you more pieces to your puzzle and give you bigger price tags for it. But if you don't happen to have a company that's going to buy those things for you,
Yeah.
so that's part of what our rationale today. So we'll definitely try to stick to only an hour next time.
Yes.
And if you are interested in doing data visualizations with Power BI, or have done it and would like to talk, let us know. If you've done it in Tableau and would like to do it too, otherwise you'll listen to us talk for an hour. Probably me.
Yeah, you've done. I'm trying to pull in some of my stuff to see if I can replicate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I think another interesting topic would be like questions. You mentioned that it's really important for management to like give data scientists the right kind of questions. Like, I don't know how do you know that you're giving somebody the right kind of questions? Like, what kind of questions should you expect that people to ask? How do you tell that stuff?
That's a good one actually.
Here's a data set. What do you see is not a good.
And that's something because whenever I was working in like digital agencies, I came up with kind of a data interview format that I did, and actually would send it over to the potential clients and say, hey, just to get you guys thinking. And it was amazing how when we actually sat down to talk about their campaigns, because initially everyone was like, oh no, we just need to talk about the campaign we want to launch. It's like, no, I want to know what they want to get out of it. Like the details of what is in the campaign is great, but I'm like, what do they want us to tell them afterwards? Like, what is the ROI? Like, do they just care that their phone's ringing? Okay, that makes my job easy because they'll be able to tell whether or not their phone's ringing. But do they actually want to see, okay, how much did you spend digitally in display versus paid search versus social media? And then how many people clicked over from that? Those sort of things. And so there's some kind of generic data interview questions that we've used in the past that we found at least kind of gets the conversation going. And it also is a matter of making sure too that trying to get people invested in on like the management side, that's I think probably the hardest part, because a lot of times they're like, I don't know how many times I've been told, well, you're the analyst, you tell me what I'm supposed to do. It's like, okay, I can try, but you just handed me this and I wasn't here when you collected or set this thing up, so I don't know anything about it. So that's kind of been it's an interesting challenge to deal with, but yeah, we can definitely cover that. That can be a whole topic in and of itself.
That brings so many data governance questions to bear too. Don't even get me started.
Data governance, that's another data governance.
That could be another debate.
Because I guess, what are your guys' different roles where you guys are at right now? I'm just curious. Does anybody want-
I'm the one who does advertise with some of the evidence is in our SQL evidence,
system date.
Mm-hmm.
Like how, like SAS or, like they can, so I'm wondering that sounds like a system date. So a lot of times like SAS, like the way their dates are coded, if you put it in SAS date format, it's usually like a 5 or 6 digit, and it's based off of how many, what's the time from January 1st, 1970. It's really weird. It's something arbitrary that SAS does, and that's what the SAS date, I don't know why it's like that. I don't know who picked it. I can't remember why, but that, I mean, that could be something that, depending on how they stored it, because if it's a number that doesn't make any sense, it just makes me wonder if they did something like that, if it's just a count from some sort of system date.
So since it's just extracting data, Power BI, I could probably do it. When you look at the different tables that you want to get, there's no relational data. And so just trying to figure out, I need to get 5 tables, how do I relate the data to each?
So you can connect them and make one.
No, that's where it's a different beast.
Yeah, if they collected the data in 5 different places, but they never made sure there was like a unique key across the 5 different pieces of data, which does happen, unfortunately.
Well, and dealing with some people who give you data extracts, they forget to give you.
Uh-huh.
I think it's in the background because there are what can reports that you might know is in the part of data, but I'm not, no one can provide me with data dictionary for the system. So I can't see how it fits. And for me, it's not intuitive because that's not what I've done.
Yeah.
Oh, just trying to
So are you just accessing it like that with data on Power? You're actually doing like a ledger base and you're like loading reports to people or like for the dashboard and stuff like that?
They have not, that is what I'm supposed to do, like the tax return. So they've done it in the past. There's, it's in Excel, so there's some bits of trickery actually. So they've done it, but they want to move to Power BI. So I'm tasked with moving that information to Power BI. Some people have written SQL codes, to get the information that they're getting. And so I'm trying to learn SQL, I'm trying to learn Power BI. Trying to get the data in a format that I can use, and I feel like I'm lost.
Well, it sounds like going over Power BI next month will be a good one, since we'll kind of, since we're gonna talk on Power BI, that could be something we can just talk about, even like connecting data maybe a little bit. That's kind of a daunting task, just to be like, hey, learn all this stuff that you've never had to do before. I feel like that happens a lot.
I was gonna say that's what we're doing to everybody right now, but
I feel like that's what happens.
I think that's my fault too.
Okay, what do you guys do?
Who's a software developer and business owner of Thompson Technologies. We gather a bunch of data, and so we're trying to look at ways to start adding experiments stuff to it. Don't even know the right questions to ask, or you know, add some stuff to kind of learn design for marketer.
Oh, cool. Oh, nice. So you like the market, so you like the kind of like marketing side of it, yeah. UX is a big thing, I feel like, from a design standpoint. That was a big thing when I worked in digital advertising. We had a UX developer who would do like UX audits, and we would actually put coding in place. We would, because it's say a client didn't have any web analytics on their website, so you had no idea what was actually working. They're like, oh, well, I don't want this feature anymore. Well, I don't know. Do you know if people are interacting with that? Because you can totally track that. It's pretty easy. So it's amazing, like, what just getting some simple data on a website and where they're clicking at can make a huge difference to influence, like, design elements or things like that. So that's pretty cool that you could.
Yeah, we have a small user base because it's like kind of industrial software, so it's like the actual total number of users we have is pretty small. We have a lot of internal data on sort of what's happening on the software like that.
Oh, nice.
So it'd be nice to be able to like find somebody that's actually utilizing that to like
Actually connected.
to go back to actually inform the design and make it like make the features more powerful.
What kind of, like, how are you guys tracking interactions with the, like, software? Like, what tool or?
Mostly handwritten rules, stubs. It's all like, yeah, that's mostly what we're doing. It's just like we'll write little logs
we were doing stuff for a client that had an internal and an external facing pages, and so they wanted to redesign on both. And so they knew that people were accessing things from the database side, but they didn't know how they were getting there because there was like 5 different ways somebody could get to that same point. It's like, well, we need to track this front end in order to tell you which way is best to keep based on what you're saying on the back.
We need to do that. We don't have that. But we track your route.
Yeah. Well, if you guys ever want to chat about it, I mean, I've had to do that before. Just happened to, I don't know. I have weird life experiences, I feel like, sometimes.
I think your marketing could be a whole talk.
Yeah, the marketing side of everything it was a cool thing to do. I just happened to get asked to go work for, does anybody know Ackerman McQueen? I worked there for like 3 years, and then I was at another agency for like a year and a half. But I actually worked on like the NRA, Integris, Chickasaw Nation, all that. Yeah, it's fun stuff. What do you do?
Yeah, so I've mainly been digital marketing for the last decade. I was doing it in-house for a few kind of e-commerce properties, whatever. We were in the same building as Ackerman.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
The Dark Tower.
Yes, Dark Tower. And then so I was doing like a lot of the ad buying and like specifically like growth acquisition buying and stuff for websites. And then we pivoted a little bit and launched an Amazon business that we sold back in October. So I was like pretty heavily involved with like the operational aspect of that and like the data analysis piece in terms of just like our supply chain and things
Yeah.
like that, and fulfillment and all that other stuff that goes with it. And then been consulting since about June, doing like mainly like more digital marketing stuff, just like understanding what the marketing in the city, and like media production as well.
Nice.
And one-off type projects and then some other passion projects that are that deal.
That's really cool. What did you guys use any specific tools for doing like the ad buying placements?
So the ad buying, not really. I mean, we would just kind of dump everything out from the web interfaces and just kind of track things that way and then slice and dice whatever
Yeah.
we would need to. And then in terms of like our own internal application, it was all just a SQL database that we would just pass values on our own screens and just basically just put everything in our database that if we needed it, we could use it. But no, never did anything never collected any robust like CRM and anything
Yeah.
like that. We just basically did everything in-house and at one point literally the whole company had learned SQL to the point that we didn't build reports anymore in our admin because everyone just got access to our application databases and we just you need something, you just run the SQL report and that deal. So
That's
pretty bootstrapping, but it worked. So.
Hey, duct tape can work in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
Sometimes.
Hey, my 6-year-old has learned the value of duct tape.
I'm telling you, it can be. I mean, and sometimes especially doing data and analytics, you kind of have to depending on if they want it. What is it? Fast, cheap, or reliable? We would always I remember my husband and I worked together at the 2 agencies that him and I both worked at. We actually worked. It was an interesting combination. We were both the data development people, and we would always ask our higher ups which 2 of these things do you want? Because you can't really have it fast and reliable and it be cheap. It just that does not happen. Because to make it reliable, that means there's going to have to be more hours put in on the front end to do quality checks and everything else. So it's kind of interesting when you ask people that question, which way they actually go. Most people always choose fast. It's fast and cheap. Reliability is the last thing anybody wants, which is kind of scary to me. But I mean,
I'm spending money, I think reliability is the first thing I want. But
that's the scary thing I think about digital marketing kind of data and information. It pivots so quickly. Depending on if you're allowed to set it up properly on the front end, so that way it can be reliable information. So that way, for instance, if people are doing social media campaigns and the AdWords campaigns and things like that, are they actually tagging those different campaigns appropriately.
Yeah.
We used to have our social media people and content marketers all using the same exact UTM source, so we couldn't tell where people were coming from on the website.
Wait, they use the same, like they were passing the same values, you're saying?
Yeah. Because there was like no oversight on like what people were using, so it's just like, oh, we'll just all use the same thing. It's like, you can't break that out. And they're like, oh, well, you can just look at the source media. It's like, you just overwrote the default values that come through, so no, but
Yeah.
okay.
Well, it's kind of like we were talking a lot about like the data cleaning and, you know, like the step before that, I would just call it like just data hygiene, where
Mhm.
when you're structuring like URL or something like that for digital marketing campaigns, it's like announcing provisions where you kind of care if you kind of got your ducks in a row from the outset.
Yeah.
And that's just a mistake that I just learned the hard way over time when I'm just like building campaigns all willy-nilly and finding them like, oh yeah, these are kind of all over the place. I'm kind of a mess if I want to look at more than one campaign.
Yeah, at the same time, yeah. Well, one thing that maybe we could cover at some point is, do you guys ever use open source web analytics? It's now Matomo, it used to be Piwik. It's pretty awesome, honestly. Like, you self-host it, I mean, it's free, but you have to, you're responsible for housing all the data, but you're not beholden to the same pieces that Google Analytics does. Like, you're not supposed to get any identifiable information, all of that. In Matomo, it used to be Piwik, you can actually get IP, you can get all the information from the forums and actually tie it into the person's web visit if you want. Like, it's pretty, and it is very similar to Google Analytics. Like, we actually did a test a few times where we compared what we were getting on the website with Google Analytics versus the custom solution, because there were some things that you still needed to use Google Analytics for, but there's a way you can push things into Piwik or from Piwik over there, which is kind of neat, because the client ID, session ID, hit timestamp stuff that lives in the back end of Google Analytics, you can actually kind of push that from each system. It's kind of cool to make one data set.
Was there any plan on the kind of roadmap for the presentations on anything like using analytics for means of like cybersecurity or like fraud prevention, things like that? Just talking about IPs that like
Yeah.
remind me, like we would collect IPs or we would just have them stored in our databases, and it was an easy way to track fraud in the early days before they came, like ad fraud before it got a lot more sophisticated. But
We could cover that, actually. That's something that Terry's had to do. My spouse has had to do some of that stuff.
Oh,
From a
good.
security standpoint. I'm volunteering for a lot. He'll be fine. Hawaii. But he actually helped build some visualizations for a data compliance company, because they were trying to get people to buy their business, but it was getting hard to actually show people why they needed to hire somebody to do it. So he actually built visualizations that showed like all the different compliance components and why most people shouldn't try and do it in-house, depending on, it was more for like military level, but yeah, there's some different things that he's done with like data security and things like that. We can definitely cover, especially if you ever want to, say, host your visualizations so that people can get to the URL. Yeah, like how do you set it up so that way, do you want it to be a public access URL? Do you want there to be logins behind it, and ways you can kind of set that up? Because like I said, I always go to him for it, but it drives me nuts that I can't do it myself. I don't know why. But yeah, no, those
There's
are
so
good.
much to learn.
There is a lot. That's kind of the thing with, I feel like this whole, what we dealt with when like we worked together is that people, I think, quickly realize that no one person can actually do everything a data scientist is supposed to. It's at least, it's a group of people, like even two people, like between him and I, we were able to do a lot, but there was only so much time in the day. So we would always go into we would tap into like some of the IT resources, because they were the next level that actually understood kind of what we were doing to help us set up some of like our data capture databases and things like that. But yeah, no one person can do it. Like, that's impossible. There's not enough